to catch people up, because I'm not expecting that everybody knows here. This is a creator show. This is kind of like broader media news, right? But I do think it's important for us to understand what's happening here, because it illuminates what's going on in the broader media industry, which, by the way, is now the YouTube media industry. So here's what was announced. On December 5th, Netflix agreed to buy Warner Bros. Discovery's studio and streaming business for $72 billion. What Netflix gets out of the deal is Warner Brothers film, TV, and game studios, HBO and HBO Max, DC Entertainment Studios, DC Studios, TNT Sports, and their content libraries. The broadcast side of their machine gets spun off, and Netflix just gets all of the content and all of the production and all of the personnel, basically. Of course, there's a lot of questions about whether this will go through. There's discussions from Trump about whether he's going to support it, right? There's an active hostile takeover and bidding war from Paramount, who was the other kind of company that was making a real gunning for this Warner Bros. Studio. And it's just kind of very dramatic. I think that's well covered. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about kind of the news itself? But I have a take about this.
Yeah. Netflix wanting to get bigger by buying Warner Brothers, it's not like a big surprise to me. I think more is the fact that Warner Brothers wants to sell and not just do their own thing. But I think the initial thing is the streaming wars are getting really competitive. We're talking about how people are more discerning about what they pay for, right? Yeah. What they sign up for. For about 2 or 3 years, every studio, every kind of media outlet had to have their own streaming, including like even smaller creators having their own subscription models or whatever.
Yes.
And so as the economy maybe slows down, things are getting tighter, it's getting harder to compete. And now people are just like, you know what? This happens in all like parts of business where a whole bunch of big players gobble up the small players. And that's what's happening here. Yeah.
And, you know, I teased it at the beginning of the show, but we were talking about this and you were like, well, this is like massive news, right? This is kind of like game over for the rest of the streamers in a lot of ways, right? You think about who's left after this deal. If HBO Max gets sucked into Netflix, like literally the app will most likely die at this point. It'll just be the Netflix app at that point.
For HBO?
I imagine so,
oh my
right?
Gosh.
I mean, why? I mean,
I didn't even think about that.
I mean, knowing Netflix, they will not want anyone else.
Well, that means I don't have to pay for HBO. So
well, that is one of the things for now. But then they're going to raise the prices, most likely.
Like HBO option for Netflix. You're saying?
What I think is going to happen is they will retain the HBO brand in front of the actual shows that have it, but there's not going to be like an HBO tab. There's not going to be like maybe there'll be one of those carousels, but we'll get to it in a second. Because I think the thing that is going to decide most of the viewing behavior is not the brands that people are watching, but the algorithm deciding what people are going to watch more and more. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But zooming out a little bit, this deal has been sort of widely discussed and critiqued and lamented and concerned. Pretty much every reaction you can have to this deal, someone has had, right? And one of the big things that people have talked about is that, well, this shouldn't happen. It's monopolistic. This is the number 1 streamer and the number 3 streamer combining. They're just buying up one of their biggest competitors. This is, anti-competitive. They're going to own 40% of the industry and things like that. And you go down the list and you look at the other streamers, and it's like Disney is high up there. And, there's Paramount that's kind of left, and Apple TV.
What did you say, Amazon Prime?
And Amazon Prime, that's right. Amazon Prime is the other one. And there's one more, actually, which is Peacock. Peacock and I think Paramount will probably combine and merge into the kind of the 5th competitor. And so everybody's freaking out about this. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, they're kind of forgetting about one of the biggest competitors to Netflix. And by the way, there is someone else who makes this argument, which is the Netflix CEO. And when we bring this up all the time, if you guys right now go to nielsen.com/data-center/the-gauge, we'll put it in the description. You can look at the current version of this. They have one for October 2025. And this is Nielsen, the people who've measured broadcast and cable TV viewing for decades now at this point, before the internet. They have this thing that has measured streaming competition. And of course, Netflix is up there with 8%. Disney is next with 4.8%. Prime is 3.8%. And then you go down, there's even like Roku and Tubi and Paramount and Peacock. Down at the very bottom is Warner Bros. Discovery at 1.3%. And if you think about what's about to happen, they're saying the number 1 and the number 3 streamers, but they haven't accounted for all of these other streamers that are free and ad supported, as we just discussed, like YouTube, like the Roku channel, like Tubi. And so even when you look at it with the combined data for these two companies, 1%, 1.3%, and 8%, that's 9.3% total. It comes nowhere near scratching YouTube, who's far and away the top of the pack at 12.9%. And so for me, it's just so funny to look at this and see everyone complaining about these kind of paid streamers and totally missing the most important competitor in the room, in my opinion, which is YouTube. And again, the Netflix CEO is making this case right now. They're saying, listen, we shouldn't be considered a monopoly because we're fighting YouTube and we're fighting TikTok and we're fighting anyone else out there. And I think that he has a point, in my opinion.
And who's he saying that to? Like government officials and like the FTC?
Well, the media, but you have to imagine that he's kind of
Antitrust?
directing it at, the government
And
officials.
those government officials like scratching their heads like, isn't YouTube just like a website where people upload videos and just like there's YouTubers? That is what's crazy about all this, that people want to watch more YouTube than TV. See, YouTube was just like this thing you watch when you were at your computer and then on your phone. But when you turn on the TV, you watch something proper. I say proper because I grew up in the era of HBO being like this special
Entourage.
place, right? Well, even before that, I don't know what was before that, but anything HBO was legit. Okay. You could say HBO was the top of the pack for premium watching. Okay. So this was like the number one cable option in your cable package. And so all the way down, I'm not saying this in a good or bad way. I'm just saying like everything from HBO and Cinemax and Showtime and all those kind of things, all the way down to the ABCs, NBCs, CBS, Fox or whatever, and everything in between, where that was TV. That was proper, studios, proper Hollywood, showbiz, the movie industry. YouTube was this geeky little platform that at first you didn't even want to tell people you had a YouTube channel. And so you fast forward, it is on top of all that. You know what's crazy about what I just said about HBO? They're just like folded into the options.
Oh, totally.
Even you saying it to me is blowing my mind that HBO could be on Netflix.
Literally.
If you go to Disney Plus, this is a good example of it. When you go to Disney Plus, at the very top of Disney Plus now, they have a Disney proper section. Mm-hmm. They have a Pixar section. They have a Hulu section. They have an ESPN section, which that's got its own challenges right now. Like people are saying like, I'm like paying for Disney Plus because I want ESPN.
Yeah.
And ESPN might get sold out or something. Yeah. And then you got National Geographic.
Yeah.
So all those make up Disney Plus. So it's kind of nice. HBO was always its own thing, including the whole HBO and then HBO Max, and then it was just Max, and then back to HBO, whatever, okay? So think about it. There's this discussion about HBO being part of Netflix, which is kind of crazy, and all these properties, including Warner Brothers, and that's like DC and Superman and Batman. That is like a Game of Thrones. That's like, I think, Lord of the Rings. I don't know, all these kind of crazy things. Then you got YouTube above all that. Above Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Apple, obviously in this case, Netflix and HBO and all that kind of stuff. Why this argument by the Netflix CEO is kind of a big deal about YouTube is YouTube would love to be like, no, we're not over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're proud of it, but they don't want to be part of the discussion.
Yeah, very
They
much.
just be an antitrust thing. This is getting hella like in the weeds, but why for a creator it's a big deal? I was saying before the show, to be honest, I was like, I don't know why we should talk about this, Austin. Like for most creators, they don't care. What actually matters here is that YouTube is number one. So if you're on TikTok or if you're on Instagram or any meta product, like Facebook, if you're doing Snapchat, there's a reason everybody wants to go to YouTube and why YouTube is succeeding. Another way to frame all of this, okay? So imagine, let's talk about fast food places, okay? What's the YouTube equivalent of fast food? There is none. There is none.
There is none. Yeah.
Because the equivalent would be this. So we got McDonald's. And say we got Jack in the Box in America. We've got KFC is in there, maybe Dairy Queen.
Don't forget about Wendy's.
I love Wendy's.
Yeah,
love,
4 for $4.
Love the chili. Okay. Imagine if there was another fast food place where they got all their food for free.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Everybody would go there.
Everyone would go there. Okay, but not only did they get their food for free, it's like unlimited, and people are rushing to give away their food there to get sold at that fast food place. Now, it's not as simple as that, because the people that give their food away, guess what they get? A little bit of the profit. But you know what? There's people that give food, and it sounds weird to like give food away and then they sell it back to people. No, I mean, we're talking about the ingredients, okay, to this new fast food, hypothetical food. And when they sell that product, right, this burger or the fries or the shake, whoever gave them that ingredient for that product, they give some little profit to them, right?
Yes.
There's almost no risk involved other than the risk you already took on by giving them the ingredients of the food. That's why there is nothing. There's literally no business, no industry. There's no entity that's like YouTube. YouTube is a phenomenon that I think will be studied for years later. And in fact, there are kind of like similar things. They're like actually other social media platforms.
Yes, exactly.
We give them content or whatever, and that's why they became big, because we go to Facebook and guess what? We get to use it for free, and people post on Facebook. They call it user-generated content,
yes.
right? Okay. Why in this conversation is a big deal? Because we never thought it would compete with the stuff that people pay for. All right, Neutrally, what was the percentage of people that pay for YouTube versus use the free version and watch ads?
So, according to ChatGPT, in 2025, YouTube has claimed about 125 million paid subscribers on YouTube Premium. However, total users, they had 2.7 billion.
Wow.
So that suggests about only 4.6% of YouTubers have premium.
And we were talking about like a third pay for like no ads on Netflix, right?
2/3 on Netflix pay for no ads. Only 1/3 have ads.
That's even worse.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. So it's like, it's an impossible task. It's inevitable that Netflix is going to buy Warner Brothers, or Paramount is going to team up with Peacock, or guess what? Other big thing. I was telling you my theory. I think Apple and what did I say? Apple and another platform is going to combine
You talked
together.
about Paramount?
Oh yeah, Paramount or
Yeah.
Peacock maybe.
Yeah,
Peacock
Peacock
and
as
Apple
well.
would go together. I'm thinking about like Tom Hanks.
I'm telling you, Apple will never. They're just going to do
Okay,
their own
yeah.
Apple thing. But
What I'm
I think Peacock and Paramount would.
But that's why Apple will never compete against YouTube for content,
Oh, totally.
because people create content for free for YouTube. But YouTube is good enough of a platform by accident to give you, the person that creates that content, a little bit of pay. When I say a little bit of pay, it's actually pretty good. And that thing is almost impossible to replicate, because that fast food chain that I just talked about, that's not McDonald's, Burger King, Dairy Queen, Wendy's, that have to pay for the ingredients. They forever probably will get all their ingredients for free.
Yeah.
And when you have that going on, there's no catching up to that. It's impossible. You have to create that new platform. Well, when you're like the only one doing it, first off, it's hard to create that. Think about it. The only other ones that can touch it would be like a Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that YouTube has that none of the other social media platforms that have user generated content?
Horizontal long form video.
Horizontal long form video. Basically, content fit for the television. YouTube's the only one. YouTube is winning the social media war, and they're winning the TV war, and they're over there. And that's what I'm saying. Like, they secret, like, hey, Netflix CEO, just don't mention us. Don't make us part of the conversation, even though they know it and they're proud of it. And as a creator, why that matter? It's worth it to be on YouTube.
Yes.
Because all the money that went to the shows and the movies and the Hollywood industry is now going to start coming to us. Maybe not in the same way, but indirectly or through AdSense or brand deals or whatever. And that's crazy, because the amount of money that is still on the way to us, the creator economy, it's just, we can't even fathom them. Just like we couldn't have fathomed that YouTube would be better than HBO in terms of its value.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go even further than that. All right, you talked about nerding out. Let me go back a little bit. Bear with me here, because what you're talking about as it relates to the content that people create for YouTube has really deep roots in why Netflix would even be buying Warner Brothers in the first place. So if you were to ask yourself, what is the value of Warner Brothers to Netflix? Here is kind of what I would think. The first thing is that, number one, first and foremost, they have a back catalog. They have a bunch of movies and a bunch of shows that they know people love and watch, like Friends, for example, right? For Netflix, who is in the game of trying to get people to come to Netflix, stay on Netflix, and come back to Netflix, well, if they have run out of content that they can recommend you faithfully, well, they're screwed. They have nothing else to do. There's nothing else to show you, right? They'll try and give you something that might be interesting to you, but ultimately you'll probably go somewhere else, probably like YouTube. But think about Netflix's history. Netflix started out by, well, shipping DVDs, but when they started out on the TV in terms of the internet, they would license content from all of these studios. Their deep back catalogs, like Friends, for example, like Warner Brothers'
Office
movies.
was on there.
The Office
that
was
was a
on
big
there.
deal. It was an even bigger deal when they removed Office.
Exactly. And they would then take those shows and make them accessible to viewers. That created a flywheel. I mean, when you said streaming 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have only thought Netflix pretty much at that point, right? As things went on, they eventually started to backwards integrate, which is the business term, into studio production. The first example of this was House of Cards. They made their own TV show, and they kept all of their own things internal. They would not license their content to anyone else, but they would continue licensing content from other people to build out their catalog. Of course, the thing that we know that happens over time with anything like this is that you end up with way more content than you know what to choose. If you ever walked into Blockbuster back when there were Blockbusters, you often either knew what you wanted already because it was something new, or you had it on your mind when you walked in, or you had to ask for help from the people at the front, right? The version of that on Netflix for a while was personal curation, but very quickly was the solution that every online platform has to the abundance problem, which is algorithms. So they built out their algorithm, and their user base and their algorithm became the tastemakers for what would find success on Netflix. The Office was already popular, but it really became super mega popular after it went on Netflix. Friends was a similar phenomenon. And over and over again, Netflix found that their algorithm was turning franchises, other people's franchises, into hits. And so what happens after they blow up The Office and The Office leaves Netflix? Well, suddenly Netflix looks over at whoever has The Office, at this point, Peacock, and they say, God, why did we help them so much to get where they're at? Because now they're reaping the benefits of all the hard work that we did in making them a hit. And so it continues on. The lesson of this is that the only scarce thing online is attention. And that is why Netflix's CEO is so focused on YouTube, because YouTube is the unlimited version of that. Now, let me go back even further and compare it to Warner Brothers. 100 years ago, Warner Brothers started off as a theater owner. They literally owned theaters, and they would license movies from the studios, and they would play them in their theaters. Now, back then, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have algorithms. They had to have people like actually make decisions about these things. They had to have people, sweeping the aisles and things like that. And they found out that owning the theaters was actually a pretty hard business to be in. It wasn't very scalable. It was kind of one-to-one. With every theater, you added a certain amount of profit. Every theater, you added a certain amount of profit. The more profitable thing, the tech industry before the tech industry, was making movies and selling them to everybody over and over and over again, because you would make it once and you would sell it to everyone, including your own movie theaters. And so they backwards integrated into production because the theater business was hard. Eventually, theaters became TVs, became VHSs, became DVDs. And if you made one movie, you could sell it to every one of those mediums. And it was super profitable for Warner Brothers at the time. Sound familiar? The name of the game at that point was content production. You make it once and you sell it over and over and over again. For Netflix now, they're learning the same lesson basically, and they're learning it in a very interesting era because the internet era changes things. For you would think that someone like Warner Brothers then with HBO would be able to just beat Netflix because they had all the content. Well, what was the thing that they were missing? Users, attention, and a good algorithm.
So it kind of reversed a little bit.
It reverses the order, but the lessons are still the same. If you have distribution and you have the content, then you win the game. So, zooming out, YouTube.
Are we fast forwarding? Because you went
Fast forward. I went 100 years back.
Okay,
actually. By the way, fun side note. The year that Warner Brothers bought their first theater, I think was 1907. And I think the year that Netflix started doing distribution deals was in 2007. So exactly 100-year mark from each other. Just kind of weird.
That is weird.
So if the name of the game here is as much content as possible, and Netflix is willing to pay billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars, to buy a back catalog so that way they can shore up their content, who should they be most concerned about in the room? The person who also has an algorithm, also has attention, and who has more content than anybody could ever hope to create in their lifetime with a billion studios. YouTube.
A billion? My gosh. By the way, if you're like confused or your head spinning, a billion studios, it's a billion creators.
A billion creators.
A creator is all of it, right?
Not to say that we're at a billion creators yet, but there is a path to get there where there's a billion people on this planet creating content for YouTube. That'd be another good question to look up in terms of statistics. And so this is all to say, just to buttress the same point that you did, this is the long and convoluted version that says YouTube is bigger than ever before. And that means that the opportunity on YouTube is bigger than ever before. This is true in any business. If you're looking to find success, you want to look at the things that's fastest growing, the most exponential, and you want to chain your cart to that horse, because that is how you get pulled along. If they succeed, you succeed most of the time. And in this case, in my mind, that opportunity is YouTube. It gets even deeper, and this is the last thing I'll say, which is that I think that if you had to guess about who the last two people would be in this room, it would be Netflix and YouTube. I think Netflix has a long future in front of it. I think YouTube has a long future in front of it. They kind of have carved out different niches for themselves, right? And I think that having people pay for content.
Netflix didn't have the baggage of all the studios and the networks that had built these systems. You see this in business. You know how like they talk about the S&P,
yes,
like 50 years ago, and there's only like not even 5% of those companies still alive today.
I know.
A part of that is because you build a business so big and it can't kind of evolve or maneuver or be nimble to the crashes or the new technology or whatever. You're already, renting out all these machines that now have no relevance, and this other smaller company who has none of those old crappy machines is using the new technology where they don't need a machine. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
So Netflix in this battle is like the young kid, but there's a younger kid. And it's weird because he's like the old kid in the new cool kids club. And that's why, like, I in a way, I kind of agree with you. Like, that's just going to go, because my question always is, why doesn't YouTube buy out some of these libraries?
Because they don't have to. That's literally it.
And that's what's so crazy, that they do not have to. That they don't even have. They already have endless ingredients being given to them to sell food to people that people pay, and then people that gave them the ingredients make money, but they don't have to gobble up all these other franchises, literally, like the way the Netflix or all these other like studios are doing. And that is wild to me. But then
$72 billion to do what YouTube gets for free every single day.
Oh my gosh. So how much does it cost to do what Netflix does?
Well, actually, I don't know what the kind of run value of that is, but the thing that I was going for there was that if Netflix and YouTube are the last two standing, it's still good news for creators. It's still good news for creators if Netflix is YouTube's biggest competitor. And here's why. We are seeing more and more every single day that people start on YouTube, very small, scale their way up, and sell their shows to Netflix.
That's funny.
So
that's funny. You make money on YouTube and then you sell your library, which I have seen. Blippy did that.
Miss Rachel does that.
Miss Rachel did that. We're talking about kids shows because I'm a dad of 5 daughters. But there's a lot of
Mark Rober has done that. You could go. Dude Perfect is in talks for doing.
So they're like they're like the new Warner Brothers,
literally,
in 1907 or whatever.
So It is, and again, whatever other people say about Netflix, we have an opportunity. Benji, you're right. You're like, why do creators care about this? And to some degree, maybe people won't click on this and it'll be what it is. But I think creators should pay attention because it shows you that now is the time to get started on YouTube as YouTube grows faster and is bigger than ever before. It is literally, we've said this for a year plus now. It is the best time ever to start on YouTube. And this is one of the biggest reasons or biggest examples of why I can say that that is true. And I think we began our year really beating the drum about YouTube on the TV. And we end our year now seeing this and can say YouTube is one of the two juggernauts. They're one of the only two juggernauts. And you have the opportunity to be posting to one of those juggernauts, and which means that you have an opportunity to be as big as anybody else in the world.
The reason creators don't care and you don't have to care is because what makes YouTube great is you as a creator create amazing content that people want to watch, and this platform makes it so it's easy for people to consume your videos and you get paid for it, and that's what makes YouTube number one. The reason it's good to kind of pay attention and to understand this and be aware of it is because the former though gets even more valuable.
Yes.
I know this because AdSense goes up. It's like, what's crazy? AdSense, just for example, by the way, if you don't know this, as a creator on YouTube, I upload videos, an ad gets played, and through their AdSense machine, I get a paycheck every single day. We used to get paychecks in the mail, by the way.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, you get, that was a pretty cool.
Mailbox money.
And then it was like wired to your account. And I think that's how most people get paid, though you can have the option to get a check mail too, I think. So there's always seasons. There's certain months of the year. Obviously, the fourth quarter, Black Friday, holiday sales, Christmas, you get paid more because the ads are worth more, okay? One thing I have observed, steady Freddy, throughout all the years, every holiday season, that AdSense value starts ticking up. Now, it can be different for different genres or whatever, but it's always gotten a little better. Like this year, my AdSense is kind of wild to me.
Really?
Now, to be fair, guess what? I'm doing longer videos, so more ads are playing, but I notice the ads are just getting more valuable because what happened? Oh, wait, this is a great way to top off this show.
Yes.
What happened? All those advertisers that used to be on TV that paid ungodly amounts for those commercials, they're like, YouTube's actually way better. It's more targeted.
Yeah, literally.
It's cheaper. And then as that was like being found out, more people come in. And so there's competition. So what happened is, as a creator, you're creating the same kind of video, but guess what? The ad spot gets more valuable. You don't have to do anything. You literally don't even have to think about this. It's just happening automatically. So someone like my wife, who doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, that could care less about this topic. She's like bored to death right now. She's listening. Okay, she's just doing this to support me. But guess what? The thing that she's always been good at, which is creating content that people keep wanting to watch, because more valuable, because YouTube is more valuable, and they're playing in an arena that just never was a thing. Like Netflix and all these people, just, it's like wild. It's I'm trying to think. There's definitely examples of this. There's like, they call them the good old boys, or like, the cool kids club. Just like, we're part of this crew, and, no one gets in. And you just see this like almost loser. You just call them a loser. They're not a loser, but they're like a loser on the outside. They're just begging for money on the side of the street. And then out of nowhere, they're not just in the cool kids club. They're kind of like running it.
Yeah.
And now you're like, dang, like this came out of nowhere. It didn't. It just got bigger because of technology.
Yes.
This is like, again, going back to my whole philosophy and why I believe vlogging is coming back and just longer videos are going to be important. The technology just evolved to literally, without any kind of really foresight or planning, to be perfect for YouTube to dominate in the TV era. Period. Set aside everything we just talked about. YouTube is dominating the TV era, and it's only going to get more significant, I believe, including with movies and full-on shows, like with series and full productions. But even the vlogger out there who's doing like home videos that looks like Talking Head style in 2008, they will just continue seeing more success. A good example of this is just people doing podcasts out of their living room and becoming like the new celebrities.
or doing vlogs every single day, which is one of the reasons why we created Vlogging Academy, because we truly believe, if you don't get it yet, that we think it is the best time ever to get started on YouTube. Not just because it's the biggest opportunity, but because it's easier than ever to get started on YouTube, especially if you use Benji's 3T method at Vlogging Academy. You know, one of the lessons of this Netflix deal is that a back catalog is super valuable because the algorithm is super powerful, right? So if you go along with that, you can say, hey, how do I capitalize on YouTube's algorithm to give us a back catalog here, right? How do I, as a vlogger, make my back catalog viewable and monetizable? Well, Benji has solved that problem by centering your vlogs around a topic and takeaway, and telling stories that are evergreen that illuminate that topic and takeaway every single video that you create. You can learn more about that by checking out vloggingacademy.com. He also talks about it in his free masterclass there at, again, vloggingacademy.com. And our thanks to the students of Vlogging Academy who make this show possible. A little bit of real-time follow-up here from Carla, who gave us some information from Gemini, who says that there are 207 million individuals globally who identify as content creators. YouTube creators, over 64 million content creators. And that means that we're well on our way to 1 billion. So, we got time for a little bit more, or should we wrap it up?
I mean, we'll find. There's a quick question from the chat area. So, by the way, if you're listening to this on the replay, leave a comment on what kind of topics you want us to cover. What was your aha moment? But Doc Rock talks about how vlogs will be coming to Netflix in 2 years, in less than 2 years.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was like, how would that work? But I actually believe it could. Why not? And also, that'd be great for vloggers.
Well, I mean, we've seen podcasts already make that transition, right? Netflix buying, this is the kind of the precursor to the Warner Brothers thing. On the lower end of the ticket is the podcast side of things, and they're buying licenses to Spotify's podcast, and you can see that. You could imagine that for vlogs as well.
Yeah. So, and so, by the way, we don't call this the YouTube Secrets podcast for a reason. No shade to the book YouTube Secrets, which you should buy if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel. We call this the creator secrets, because what is important, even if you don't think of yourself as a creator or you don't like that term, if you're creating content that is going to be consumed on one of these digital platforms, including the TV, which is weird, it's a digital platform now, then being a creator is what's important.
Yes.
No matter what type that is. And that's why this show is dedicated to you guys. John Cortez, who came on earlier, he's on short form, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. If you're like a podcaster that's creating content, that's why we call this the Creator Secrets Podcast. Because I believe that creators are the future, it's weird to say, of everything. Because when we think about how we spend our day, I told you, I started this whole show off with saying, like, I don't want to consume, because it's so easy to pick up that phone, open up YouTube, turn on the TV, click on YouTube, and just consume away, because the algorithms are so smart and we love it, right? Well, if you want to be on the other side of it, you have to be a creator, period. There's no other option to it, where you're one-man band, you got a huge team, or a huge corporation, which, by the way, CEOs of corporations, I met them now, are becoming creators because they realize how not only important, valuable, but also the ROI of it is there. And so if they're doing it and they're hiring me to be their consultant to like make it happen, and there's creators out there that are just like living in the basement of their parents' house and becoming a celebrity, everyone has to consider this. I think even if you're not like, even if you're in denial of it, you secretly know, like, I need to do this. So yeah, that's what I would say. And to Doc Rock's point, it doesn't matter the platform, because if you're a creator, I do believe this. I thought it was going to happen earlier, that YouTube wouldn't be relevant. I think it's still got legs for 5 or 10 more years. But whatever other platform, guess what? If I can create content that people are willing to watch on YouTube, I can do it on other platforms. In fact, creators have done that. They went from YouTube to Instagram, YouTube to TikTok, and guess what? They're all flocking back to YouTube for a reason, and no matter other things. So being a creator is what's important, and the opportunities will be there for you because you're doing the thing that's really hardest for businesses to do, which is captures people's attention.